The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests as individuals, and do not necessarily reflect those of advertisers or sponsors. This show is intended as entertainment and commentary only. The producers strive for verisimilitude, but nothing said on this podcast should be taken as fact by the listener or viewer without performing due diligence.
The physical universe is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at.
This is Keep Your Hat On, a show by three nerdy nobodies and one nerdy kind of somebody about nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is brought to you by the Narrowband Broadcast Network, NBBN. The focus is on you. By PodSquadPDX.com, painless podcasting. And by the kind support of KYHO fans everywhere through Patreon. Patreon, create on your own terms. Get ready to go where many, many nerdy podcasts have gone before. That's right, kids. The boys are headed out into the infinite void, the eternal black abyss, the never-ending emptiness. Oh, and they're gonna talk about space, too. I'm your cool fruit, Mr. Brumage. Grab your towel. You know where your towel is, right? Here's your away team, Chief Podcast Engineer, Montgomery Scott, the ancient swamp guru, Dr. Mark, and the red-shifted schizoid android, Ty. Carlos, where's my towel? What'd you do with my towel? Bring that towel back. I need it.
And welcome back to the brave new world of Keep Your Hat On. I am Andrew Scott, along with Dr. Mark Peterson and Ty Robert Anthony.
Hey,
howdy. We are chrysalis here today. Chrysalis here today. Mr. Vicano is busy doing the Lord's work, and by that I mean doing what it takes to keep paying his mortgage. He is working diligently on a project, and he sends his regards, etc., etc. But we're all old, and so we're sitting around talking about the cost of reading glasses.
Yeah, how messed up is this? Is how things have fallen. This is what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but it is what it is.
Get reading are you no? But so now, okay. So
I got both.
Are yours prescriptions or just like are they just readers?
I know I have to have prescription readers now.
Okay, so you have astigmatism now too, or is that
happened about my astigmatism started showing up about 10 years ago. And about 5 years ago, I crossed over that threshold to where standard +1, +1.5, et cetera, reading glasses were just like so negative nothings. They just did not. I'd have been better off holding up a thing I had to read on the other side of a fishbowl.
So you can't just go get on to Walgreens anymore run through the rack.
But before we started the show, I was telling Mark and Ty that about 10 or 12 years ago, I saw an article on NPR. And it was a small investigative piece on, quite frankly, the sham and scam that is eyeglass sales and manufacture. And so what I do and what I've done with good effect for the last, 10 years, I go out, I go to an actual I can't remember. Wait, optometrists deal with glasses. Ophthalmologists do your eye check.
Man, is the doctor.
Right. So I go and I actually get my prescription checked. I walk out with a paper prescription, and I walk right through the little, the forest of glasses, and I go back into my vehicle, go home, get online to a very good online reading and distance-looking glasses shop. And I don't think I paid more than $40 for a pair of glasses in the last 10 years. Yeah. And they work the same. They look the same. I look as much a nerd in these as I would in any other glasses. But
they're not going to help.
I'm staring down that lens. See what I did there, lens? I'm staring down the barrel of having to get progressives. I'm on and off and wearing two pairs of glasses.
Is going to be where the trick is. So I wear progressives, and I did go through, one of the online stores for my frames.
So you go through an online service, and I had
problems, and then I was like, man, I got them, and they were just really, really weird, and so then I took them to the optometrist.
Was that your first pair of progressives ever?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she looked at it after having done my prescription. They looked at it and they went, yeah, they kind of got this wrong.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay. And then I sent it back, and then they sent them back, and I took it straight to the optometrist. Nope, they still got it wrong. So
yeah, see, I've had that happen too. I had exactly the same thing happen with my the first set of progressives. I went to the actual optometrist, and they were great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's just what she was saying was.
Ty, how long ago was that?
Oh, that was 3 years ago.
Okay, so that was, in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty recent. I was wondering if maybe you did it 10, 15 years ago when they were just starting to offer the manufacture of progressive lenses.
Yeah, but she was saying that in her experience, that I am not the only person that has had this thing happen. The progressives just don't seem to come back
accurately
as prescribed.
They have to actually, they put the glasses on you, and they put the dot on the thing to track your pupil when you go in, right? And
maybe that's the missing sauce.
I had all those measurements and everything else.
You did all that, and they still got it wrong.
And they still got it wrong.
Now, I'm kind of in worse shape than both of you because I'm even older. And so my progressives I use for driving, that's actually pretty straightforward. The ones I'm wearing right now.
Strict readers?
Bifocals, baby. And I went with old school bifocals because, and it was really interesting trying to talk them out of giving me progressives. That was hilarious. Because with progressives, because when you read as much as I do, right? When you have progressives, you have to move your head a little bit to keep the field in focus.
Oh, no.
Yeah, baby. And so when you read as much as I do, I don't want to do that, man. I want my eye to go back and forth. So I got a nice big piece of glass on the bottom. I took a tape measure, so my ophthalmologist always jokes with me. Bottom one is set for 16 inches, which is the top of the desk. So if I'm grading here, the other one is set for 24 inches, which is where my monitor.
Okay.
So this is like, they think that's just the funniest thing ever. But there you are.
They can laugh all they want, just as long as
there must be ophthalmology jokes that we don't know about, right?
Oh, I imagine there is.
I gotta go get my prescription. My prescription updated, and I got to get some new glasses. I will ask
about the jokes,
right?
Hey,
we are on the case.
Are we all old enough to have been scoped yet? Because GI doctors have their own jokes too.
I'm headed there. I've had to put it off now for the last 4 years because of the pandemic. And
I haven't had the pleasure.
Well, look, I've had so many things stuffed inside me over the last 10 months. That just so long as you call me pretty at the end of it, I think I'll be all right. Tell you what, everybody, we'll take a quick break. We are going to come back, and when we do, we are going to space on the Narrowband Broadcast Network. I'm Andrew. That's Dr. Mark. That's Ty. We'll be right back. See ya. Bye.
Hat Nation. Want to support the show and help it grow or, keep the lights on? Head on over to kyhopodcast.com/shop and buy some cool swag. Shirts, phone cases, hoodies, and hats. I mean, duh. All proceeds go right into Andy's pocket. Help keep KYHO in your ears. That's kyhopodcast.com/shop. Go get some cool stuff, rep the show, and as always, keep your hat on, which is a lot easier when, you have a hat, right?
And we are back on Keep Your Hat On, and we are going where no podcast has gone before. Actually, that is a blatant lie. so many. I don't know if we got to pay royalties for that. At least,
Spoiler.
Yeah. I'm sure many other podcasts have gone here, but we have
Damn
not.
it, Jim.
So it's new for us, right? And I can tie this in interestingly with going with my recent hospital adventures. We're going to talk, cough, cough. We are going to talk Star Trek today for a little while. And it was brought to my attention by a really cool nurse over at Legacy Mount Hood, who is a huge Star Trek fan, they asked me if I was a Star Trek fan. And I said, yeah, I am. And they're like, I assumed so because of your name. And I'm like, And seriously, I was that
Andrew
day years
Scott.
I was that day years old before I realized that my full name, for disclosure purposes, my full name is Andrew Scott Montgomery.
Yeah.
And so I've got Montgomery Scott in my name. Seriously, 53 years old, and that's
Finally
when it
clicked.
it was pointed out to me that, oh my gosh, I'm Scotty. So, Mark, you've been watching the new Star Trek offerings. At some point, you told us that you had purposefully subscribed to the Paramount streaming service so you could keep up with Picard.
Actually, for Picard, is the reason I did that. But I also ended up checking out Discovery.
Right, yeah.
Which was kind of okay. And
I've been hearing the kind of okay and slightly better than okay, and more than anything, slightly better than anybody dared to hope it could be.
Could have imagined. Well, see, this is what happens, right? With every one of these franchises now, you're always looking for reasons why it's going to suck. I think you start from that position. It's like, they can't do this.
This is going to suck. Like, prove me wrong.
You're not going to do it. I was feeling this way, by the way. The last two Marvel Avengers movies, right? Endgame, and then the final one. And I was waiting for them just to screw it up completely, and then they didn't. It was like shocking to me.
Yeah.
But
that's still the Marvel stuff. That's still all Kevin Feige, isn't it?
Yeah, they're still making it. Well, but it's like, I think we could start a range war here, but I think they screwed up the final Star Wars one, frankly. I thought they kind of screwed the pooch on that
with
one.
it. Yeah. I would have done it differently, but I was okay with it.
When they're on the ground there, I can't remember whether it was the last Star Wars or I think it was the last Star Wars, or maybe it was Rogue One. I can't remember. Where they pick up the red sand.
Oh, that's the second to the last one.
And they go, oh, this is salt. And I'm like, as a viewer, I didn't need to. I mean, I was kind of wondering what the redness was, but I didn't need to know. Why are you putting that in there?
Crazy stuff. Well, so I'm Picard. There were people. Some people lost their shit about Picard in the right-wing blogosphere because there was some fairly wokey stuff going on in there. It turns out that the two female leads, including 7 of 9, let me just say that, decided to convert the relationship into a gay relationship.
Also known as a relationship.
Also known as a relationship. And the beauty of this was apparently they were at some other premiere together and they were standing next to each other. And they saw themselves on camera and they said, we look like the hottest lesbian couple ever. We should put that into the show.
And they heard in their head, make it so.
And it was, yes. Make it so. And it worked great. It was hilarious and cute, actually charming, right?
Yeah.
But there are people just lost them. It's like woke. And then another spoiler for those of you who haven't seen it, because there's time travel. They go back in time. And a young Guinan shows up.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Which was, and Guinan, and Whoopi Goldberg was like my favorite character, I think, in a lot of ways.
For a long time.
And so, but at the end of this particular one, things are going bad on Earth. It's before the World War III stuff that gets happening. And
you mean last week?
Well, we'll find out. Yeah. But anyway, so Guinan is actually getting ready to leave because she just can't stand the racial bullshit anymore on Earth, and it's like this just launched
That's
them
a plot
into like
stretch.
a total fucking frenzy. Anyway, but so Picard was awesome. The end tied together in such beautiful ways, and I won't even tell you. There's a couple of Easter eggs right at the end that just killed me. They were awesome.
Well, I know one of them, and I'm tempted to let it out, but I'm not gonna because I haven't watched it. Now,
I haven't watched it yet.
You can sharpen me up here a little bit. Is this a limited series, or is this?
Yeah, they just did. There were like 7 or 8 episodes altogether.
Okay,
it was the second season of like they did one before.
Right,
and
that's
so
what
this is a follow-up.
Okay.
Oh, I can hear, and this is not a surprise. So, this whole last season with Picard, Q shows up and puts Jean-Luc. Of course he does, and it's because that's how they started the series, right? Was with Q. So I think they had the ideas. Let's finish this off with Q.
So do we get closure, or do we
beautiful.
Get? Okay, all right.
It's a beautiful thing, man.
And it's done. It's not coming back. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think so. Well, I don't think so. It was so cleverly crafted. It was really the plot lines and stuff were really well done.
Well, and they've done a nice job of timing it so that Brave New Worlds, the new Star Trek series,
just started with Christopher Pike.
With Christopher Pike, and so it's a nice handoff, and you're getting some closure, but at the same time you're moving forward, but you're not because you're actually moving back in the history. So
it's
timey-wimey.
There's a kind of beautiful retro feel to the thing too, right? Because it's like you don't just solve everything by going to a faster warp speed. They actually had to sort of think their way through things. And there's a beautiful. This isn't a spoiler, but it's one of the things that has locked me in now. Is it's on Pike's ship. They got a woman who looked exactly like the number one from the original Star Trek pilot. If you remember
I saw the pictures of that, and I literally did kind of double take. Yeah,
it was the woman who married Roddenberry, right?
Right. Yeah.
Mariel Roddenberry.
Yeah.
And Nurse Chapel later, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then of course, Mom. Later on Next Generation,
even so, right?
And the voice of the computer.
Yeah.
So Marjolaine Barrett, just
there you go.
Absolutely, I still got a thing for her.
But so that's cool. So they have a young Uhura showing up on her first assignment. And it's like she's finally going to get, because everybody loved Uhura, right? I mean, and she was awesome,
and we always had virtually no story. We had no real backstory. We had no character development.
She's getting her backstory. She's going to get her backstory.
Oh, they're developing her backstory. Okay,
and it's like people forget about this too. It's like I've been talking to. I don't know. It's like you get to a certain age and you start reflecting on how fast things have changed. Because especially with all of the Sturm und Drang that we're getting these days about, things are so woke, and it's like there's this idea that things have gone too far. It's like, when I was 10, women still didn't have their own names.
Right?
I remember asking my mom this. It's like, my mom was Mrs. Dr. Raymond Peterson. And I said, why do they call you that? And she goes, that's just what they do, honey. It's like, why? That's stupid. And of course, then my mom broke out of that whole mess. But so, it's like people forget how important Uhura's character was in terms of being on television.
Oh, no shit. And
you know what I mean?
And I mean, there's a really famous story.
The whole thing.
And I don't mean apocryphal. I mean, this is verified over and over again. The whole history of Star Trek as a production and a broadcast is fascinating. It had virtually no chance to survive its first season.
That's right. Yeah.
It was the biggest risk that Desilu Productions ever took.
Oh, that's right. Lucy pushed it.
They had been known for very safe content up until that point. But both Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball went, you know what? This is groundbreaking. We are going to do this, and we're not going to take no for an answer. And they were bounced by every network there was. They had a couple sweetheart deals with networks for production at the time. And they all went, we want nothing to do with this craziness. Thank you very much.
Right.
And they kept on pushing until they got it in. They did the first season. And of course, so many people back then were going, what in the hell is this nonsense?
Yeah, remember they bombed, right? I mean, they really
did. The first season was awful, and if I remember right, and of course
on the second or third,
that blade was being held over their heads, and one of the most significant aspects of that was everybody and Leonard. If I remember right, I heard this first from Leonard Nimoy in an interview. where they were all the cast was running around getting their CVs together going, we're not coming back. We're not coming back.
Right.
And then they suddenly got picked up. Well, UHURA was still on the edge of, do I come back or not? And one of the biggest fans of Star Trek at the time was a guy named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh, I didn't know that, really. MLK
And he
was a
got
fan.
a hold of her people and said, you must come back.
Oh,
Do you realize you are the only example of a black woman with intellect and agency on television? There are millions of little black girls in this country watching you. And if you give up and suddenly disappear, it would be a great blow to what we're trying to accomplish. And so seriously, if you like UHURA, you really need to thank Dr. Martin Luther King
That's
Jr.
an amazing story. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
I kind of have my mind blown by that. But yeah, they came back for the second season. Because I vaguely remember that one of the last episodes of the first season was the trouble with tribbles. And that really, that's both a high point and a low point for all Trek fans, because it's one of the most ridiculously absurd, stupid episodes.
But it's also one of the most beloved episodes. What are you talking about?
That's
People
just
are naming their
Scotty,
pets
what did you do
after
with the
Tribbles.
tribbles? Come on.
But that's it. That's the dichotomy there, is that it's one of the silliest things they did. But it's become beloved because it's so stupid and so silly.
And let's not forget that they just simply vanished from the television universe for years, right? And the only reason they came back was in syndication later.
Yeah, on UHF stations.
And this is like, I'm talking about by like 1975 or 6. So this is like, years after they disappeared. But then, boom, off it goes.
Syndication in
movies.
the 70s, then we have a movie. Yeah.
And then the thing that you brought up, Mark, about certain aspects of the right suddenly getting their, their stuff in a bunch.
Yeah.
If you know anything about Star Trek and you know anything about Gene Roddenberry was woke before woke.
Oh, yeah.
He, his whole thing about Trek was, if we want a better world, we need to start visualizing a better world.
Absolutely.
We need to start showing the potential of what a better world looks like. And
it's amazing
he took
how
it his
much
own mission
that
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's remarkable to me. And it's, if I were being very aggressive about this argument, I would just say, you mean something like liberty and justice for all?
Oh, pshaw.
Too easy.
Right? I mean,
I am just always amazed at how ingrained it is in our culture on a world basis. I mean, everything from flip phones,
right?
I learned my first lesson of under promise, over deliver from Scotty in the Next Generation. No, I'm serious. Where he tells
that great scene. He's talking to LaForge. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Right.
That's
that we all know that, by the way, is really black, isn't it?
You never tell them exactly
Pat on the
how
back
long
to the
it's
writers
take.
for that one that burnt it into our consciousness.
We all know that one.
Never. You just always tell them it's going to take longer than it really does.
And I loved LeVar Burton, and then he goes, "But what?"
That was kind of me. Staring at the camera going, I get it now.
Yeah.
That's how I make myself look like a hero.
I don't think that the impact we live in a world where there are two science fiction franchises. There's Star Trek and Star Wars. And of course, that's not minimizing all the rest of them. What I'm saying is
better say Doctor
Who.
Yeah.
That's different, in my opinion. That's different.
Yeah, that's a whole different category.
And there's Doctor Who news coming up here in the show as well. I'm going to throw that in there. A couple of them. But, we've got the Star Trek camp and the Star Wars camp. And there are, many people who waffle between both. I'm of the both. For me, Star Wars has always been more a Joseph Campbell story. Star
it is
Trek
explicitly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's like certain pages have just been ripped out of Power of Myth.
It's the very first one, especially. It came right out of Hero of the Thousand Faces. Yeah.
And, honestly, in defense of George Lucas, he, in so many words, has kind of.
Oh, no, he's said that a number of times.
That. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, he's explicit about
it. Yeah, he said it's pretty much half Joseph Campbell, Power of Myth. And the other half is Rise
Westerns.
of the Samurai. Well, I mean, you could call it a samurai western, and it'd still work.
He was taking the samurai soap or the samurai opera kind of
little bits,
thing, right? Because this was supposed to be an opera without music, kind of.
What Star Wars was more space opera. And space opera is an actual genre and a term and things like that. Yeah. Star Trek was always more, again, it was futurism. It was more based in science, more based in reality, and had its share of kind of quirky elements, but they were always kind of minimized. They were never, there were never really many MacGuffins in Star Trek.
Yeah, I always thought that one of the differences too is like it's not quite as stark as this, but Star Trek figured out like immediately that it was about the character studies, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you can't have Kirk without McCoy and Spock, right? The three of them. That was the whole function of the show, was to present that interaction. And they've kept that stuff, even to this day. Now they've broadened it out, right? So you have, and with the reboot especially, they've broadened that out.
Yeah.
But and I think a little bit more, the Star Wars characters were sort of fulfilling the function of certain kinds of characters, right? Almost like formal character structures, what you'd expect to have happen.
Yes.
Whereas in Star Trek, I think it was more. It had a more human feel to it. To me, always.
I totally agree with that, and I think one of the other dynamics in play that I've always found very interesting between the two of them is that Star Trek is I'll go the other direction. Star Wars is an illustration of the power of the individual to come together as a team. That's number one. Why you've got one of the main protagonists and heroes being called Solo, but they come together in spite of their differences to form a team that accomplishes the hero's goal. Star Trek always led with the idea of teamwork and unification and the sum of all people being greater than just one alone, but that when it came down to it, the one person in a team could step up and be a hero.
They did a nice job with that. Remember, it's like the good of the many outweighs the good of the few or the one. Yeah. And then they flipped it around completely, remember, because the good of the one outweighs the good of the many. And I think those are nice dichotomies. In both of these cases, so now I have a completely jaundiced lens.
I see what you did there. You combined both of our stories, jaundice and lenses.
Through which I think you're going to cut the jaundice discussion, aren't you? Are we going to?
I don't even think it actually made it in, but it could be a bonus reel.
People do not need to know. Yeah, we could probably put that on a bonus reel.
You don't want to hear about
yellow journalism? That would be yellow podcasting, wouldn't it?
Oh wow!
Man.
Write that down.
I keep on forgetting to put my rim shot sound effect in there. All
Sorry
I got
about that, kids.
I just got crickets. That's all I got.
I'm unable to. We didn't need them today, too.
Right? Yeah. We stumbled upon the formula. When Chris is gone, we don't need
no crickets.
No, I'm kidding, Chris. We love you.
We're kidding, Chris. I'm unable to see these things except as like framing. So this is the fancy language, right? Framing narratives, right?
Yeah.
Which is, and a narrative, the function of that is to put you into relationship with things. And so, your narrative, the Star Trek and Star Wars narratives put you into relationship with the universe in very specific kinds of ways. And, you can believe it because of the number of people who go to the conventions dressed up as those characters, right? They actually literally put on the character on themselves as a way of putting themselves into a relationship. Yeah, physically they do it. It's really fascinating too. And it's like these narratives you were talking before, it's like, they came up, all the stuff they've come up with just simply broadened our minds he said, segueing, broadened our minds to, the possibility of new ideas, right? Our cell phones are essentially communicators, right?
Yeah.
And we're working on laser devices.
I had that with my flip phone. The first thing I did when I got my flip phone was figured out how I could make a tricorder sound when
you flip it open.
I admit
and also, it's like the other thing too is the idea that we're not alone in the universe, right? I mean, that seemed to be quite the the impression.
Yeah, you think about it. It was first developed. I mean, Roddenberry had the idea for Star Trek kicking around since I want to say it was about 59 or so.
I think that's right. Actually,
so that takes him all the way through the space race, all the way through both Gemini and Mercury.
He did pitch it as a Western in space.
Yeah, he did. That was the wording that he used. It's like a Western in space.
Well, okay. So I was thinking that one of the framing pieces of this too, and this is, I think this came up actually when Ronald Reagan at one point mentioned, it's like, what if there are extraterrestrials, right? What are we going to do about that? And it some of the discussions I remember having back in those days was
Republicans always.
I know,
with the foreigners,
always with the foreigners. Superman was a foreigner. Okay,
right?
I'm just saying, right?
Exactly,
a refugee, by the way.
Yeah.
And of course he's Moses, but that's a whole different category. It's a different thing. So, no, it's really interesting if you think this thing through, though, because here are our two choices: either we're alone in the universe.
Right.
Which seems unlikely, but let's say we are. If that's the case, we should probably sit up straight and act like fucking adults. Do you know what I mean? If we're
and not shit our bed every day and not clean it up. Is that what you're saying?
If we're the only ones here, we
again with the woke.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's one. The alternative is that there might be a gazillion other kinds of critters and beings out there floating around in space. And in that case, you see that nothing changes for us, because if that's true, we also better sit up straight and start acting like freaking adults.
Here's the whole thing: is there's a huge underlying ego trip with that, right? In both of those scenarios, either one, we're all alone, and hey, we're all alone, right? We're special, and that translates into a bunch
I wasn't going for special. I was going for
karma.
I was going for we're fragile, man. That's where I was headed.
Or well, that's not the way everybody else would see it.
No,
right?
I'm an idiot. I know that's true.
That's not true.
Hey, to use another Zen trope, you're a useful idiot at least.
I'm an optimist, which is even weirder as I get older. But go on. I'm sorry, Ty. Go on.
Second one is even more full of ego, or just as full of ego. Oh, there's space. There's more beings out there. Oh, they're coming to get us. We're important enough to be watched. We're pets. Come on.
It's like I can't remember which comedian did it, but somebody's got a thing where it's just like, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. You are one of the most technologically advanced set of beings in the universe. You cross galaxies to get here, and then you hide. All you do is watch us from a distance. What are we going to do? If we can barely even get off the planet, you're just going to hide. No, man, you just fucking show up.
At best, what it is they come swinging by, Sunday driving, day tripping, right?
What was the name of that? And they just
look at the hairless. They look at the hairless apes and they go, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
And we're like a zoo exhibit.
Yeah.
Once again, we are closed stucky on the super highway, where you can't even go and get a pecan roll. For me, what this always does is sends me back. I remember
hairless
my mom.
Apes that still think digital watches are a pretty
cool. Hey, they are kind of neat. My mom one year for Christmas got me a Gary Larson Far Side calendar, and to this day, it is my absolute favorite Gary Larson panel. It is a one panel picture, classic flying saucer, really tall, long ladder, bunch of people gathered down at the bottom. There is an alien with like 3 eyes on stalks laying face down on the dirt at the bottom of the ladder. And there's like another alien up top with a few other alien attaches behind him going, "Way to go, Gary. Way to fill him with absolute awe." Well, I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to move out of the Star Wars, Star Trek universe. We're going to head to other parts unknown here on the Narrowband Broadcast Network. I'm Andy. That's Ty. That is Dr. Mark.
The truth is out there.
I was just going to say, what should we call ourselves here? We should be.
I want to believe.
I'll be Commander Schlock. No, because you're definitely Mark. You're definitely more a Vulcan than either.
I'm afraid so. Yeah, I'm afraid
except that he's a doctor, so now he's just Dr. Mark.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't know.
Damn it, Jim.
Right. I'll come back with better jokes on the other side of the break. We'll be right back.
No, you won't.
No, you're right.
Hey everybody, Michael, your stalwart announcer here, the voice of the Keep Your Hat On podcast. We really hope you're enjoying the shows we put out every month and the bonus goofiness we try and throw in. If you do, we'd really appreciate your support. While we'd love it if you could help us out with a monthly donation by heading over to patreon.com/NBBN, please don't forget that you can also support us by telling your friends, relatives, the hot Amazon delivery guy, hell, your potted fern, about the show, and do the like, click, and subscribe thing. That's free, and it helps us out more than you might suspect. We just want to keep putting something good out into this bananas world at this extra bananas time, and we want you along for the ride. No matter what, thanks so much for audio visualizing. Now, let's get back to the show.
And hello and welcome back to segment number 3. I think it's segment number 3. I don't know. We're getting a little bit timey-wimey here. This is segment Sigma. I'm Andrew Scott along with Dr. Mark Peterson and Ty Robert Anthony on behalf of Christopher Vicano, who's too busy to hang out with the likes of us. So one of the other big things that has happened, of course, in science fiction is we have us a brand new Doctor. And we are returning back to some classic aspects of Doctor Who. Of course, Russell T Davies was the originator of Doctor Who in the rebuild, not Russell T Davies. He was the second writer. Stephen Moffat, there we go, was the person who brought it back. And then it went to Russell T Davies. And then, of course, it went to Chris Chibnall, who is, up until that time, most famous for Broadchurch. And that is how we got our first female Doctor. But now we are going back to the original writer of Doctor Who and the original showrunner of Doctor Who. And we have another first. We have the first person of color full-time Doctor. We did have a renegade Doctor lost in time on the planet Earth, who was a person of color and was a woman. But now we have our very first real full-time Doctor Who is, and I'm going to pronounce the name right, NCUTI GATWA is our new Doctor. He is an incredible actor. And this is, again, I don't watch TV, so I'm terribly behind the times on this. But everybody that I know that watches Sex Education says that NCUTI GATWA is the best thing on television in years and years and years. And they are our new Doctor. And so we are getting our first person of color Doctor Who. And
awesome.
I mean, it's one of those things where Doctor Who has been such a cultural touchstone for so many of us. And both Dr. Mark and I literally grew up watching Doctor Who. There are a few things in my life earlier as a memory. You got me by 10 and some years, so you have a little bit more ability to reach back in time. But
I can't claim to have gone in with Doctor One, right? But
I only did in reruns.
In reruns, I was a Tom Baker. I remain a Tom Baker.
I have a terrible soft spot for John Pertwee. the frilly doctor who got trapped on Earth and had to bum around with the rest of us with a full-time job and shit. I thought that was a great spin.
With the long scarf and
of course, Peter Davidson,
and the rock star hair.
It was way beyond rock star hair, though.
Yeah, Peter Davidson was impossible for me because I had watched the original BBC version of All Creatures Great and Small.
Right, so it's Tristan Farnon all the time. And you can't unsee that.
I couldn't get
You can wear as much celery on your chest as you want, and you're still a really bad alcoholic veterinarian. That's really what
I'm looking forward to the new Doctor, and if he's my only real concern is whether or not the scarf will reappear, frankly. That's my soul.
Well, you've got a chance because
it's so iconic,
this just dropped today. Because we're coming up on the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who now. All you Whovians, if you remember back to the 50th anniversary a number of years ago, 9 to be exact, Andy, we got a Doctor that we didn't know we had skipped over. And that was the War Doctor, the 12th Doctor, who was played by the late, and when I say late great, I mean great, much bigger than late. The late great actor John Hurt. Played the War Doctor.
Yeah.
But what we've got now is an announcement that for the 60th anniversary celebration of Doctor Who, David Tennant and Catherine Tate are going to be part of something. We don't know. It's going to be in the show. It's going to be in whatever it is, probably a 2-hour kind of thing. But they have been confirmed to be coming back. And, Tennant has come back now, twice or 3 times?
Those have always been great episodes when they overlap Doctors, right?
And it might be fan service. You can tell me all you want about fan service. I don't care. I like being made to feel good and go, yay, they're back, kind of thing.
As long as it's done in a tasteful way.
Well, not only that, just so long as it's done in a tasteful way that actually services the story as much as the fans.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I mean by tasteful, right?
Okay.
That's what I mean by tasteful.
An appropriate way. Well, one of the other things space-related that came up this week that has been absolutely fascinating to me is, for the first time in our history, we have an optical image of what the black hole in the center of the Milky Way galaxy looks like. And not only do we have an idea of what it looks like, this is proof that it's there. For years and years and years. Well, actually, I'll start this. So we've theorized that black holes have existed for quite a while. The actual the first significant scientific references to the idea of what a black hole would be span all the way back to around 1932, 33. Einstein hated the idea of black holes. Just said, I refuse to believe that these things are real, even though my math and my theories point to them. He just thought that they were.
Because this black hole is at the center of a lot of his work.
Well, it is. It is a good point. Well played. But it is in spite of his absolute abhorrence to the idea. One of the big significant aspects of a black hole that goes against physics is that we have, everybody remembers from science class that
Newtonian physics. You mean.
Well, exactly, and I was going to make that distinction. That matter and energy can never be created nor destroyed. They just change states. One of the things that's necessitated by the idea of a black hole is, and we all think about matter and energy getting sucked into a black hole, and we can kind of wrap our heads around that. But if you get down to the quantum level of things, quantum physics.
Now we have a problem.
We have a problem because matter and energy aren't just matter and energy, they're information. And information cannot be destroyed. And the idea of a black hole necessitates this. If the black hole is what we think of a black hole as on first blush, this idea of a singularity, a point in space and time that is so dense that not even light can escape. That's the classic idea of a black hole. And the first black hole that we ever were able to discover by observational astronomy is Cygnus X1. And it was discovered in 1973, I think. Right. Okay. And it's in the constellation Cygnus the Swan. And we later came to understand that it was part of a either binary or triune star system. We've been trying to find ways to see and understand black holes ever since then. And of course, the most noted physicist for people who just casually follow science is of course Dr. Stephen Hawking. And Stephen Hawking really had struggled with what was referred to as the information paradox that I was talking about, the idea that information cannot be destroyed. He struggled with that up until he died. And he even went so far as to say that in the last 4 years of his life, one of his main suppositions about information in black holes, he came out and said, I was wrong. I made an error. My model doesn't work here. But later on, we had discovered in M83, the M83 galaxy, we had discovered a set of stars that moved in an absolutely inexplicable way if you are measuring their movement with, as you were saying, Dr. Mark, Newtonian physics. It just wouldn't work.
Right. Don't make no sense.
And that was the first black hole that we ever actually imaged. And it was using multiple telescopes, multiple radio telescopes all over the globe. One of the interesting things about telescopic astronomy is that if you take a bunch of telescopes and you stick them all over the planet and you aim them at the same thing, you have effectively made a telescope the size of the planet Earth. I love that. And that's how we did our first imaging of a black hole. That proved that this works. And over the last 4 or 5 years, the
aperture thing?
The telescopic array around the planet.
Right.
It worked in theory until it worked in practicality. And then 4 or 5 years ago, we decided, you know what? We need to aim it at the center of our galaxy.
Right.
And we've had suspicion because, again, we were able to image the very center of the core of the Milky Way, which is really hard to do because in the center of most galaxies, it's a mass of very closely packed stars, a bunch of interstellar gas, and a bunch of other matter that just really shrouds the entire nucleus of a galaxy in this milky opaque thing. And we could see all these stars like doing U-turns and moving way too rapidly. And that really was, again, kind of a calling card of a black hole, but we couldn't image it.
Right.
Now, and we called this phenomena in the center of our galaxy Sagittarius A*, or more commonly referred to as Sagittarius A star. They have just released, as of 5 days ago, the first imaging, and it looks exactly like the first black hole image of M83.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the one that they
they're don't they have something else that there's going to be a press conference surrounding this? Not only did they announce it like 4 or 5 days ago, but there's supposed to be something else to this, but I can't remember.
There probably is, and the hits are going to keep on coming.
So
go ahead.
As I'm listening to you talk, just talk about Einstein and the changing of matter or the extinguishing of matter and all that stuff, it occurs to me that black holes just might be the toilets of the galaxy.
You are not the first.
Everything
you're not the
spins
first person
around
to make that analogy.
and stinks and then goes into the hole. And just because it goes into the hole doesn't mean that it's gone, that it's extinguished. It just means it's not coming back out of that hole.
I think the short end of the discussion, and there is no such thing here on Keep Your Hat On, is it's going to be real interesting. But that's what we got time for this episode. Everybody, do us a favor. Tune in again next time. We'll be back in 2 weeks. But until then, on behalf of Christopher Vacano,
let's stick a fork in Chris and see if he's done. Let's go.
I'll call him right now.
I was just going to say, the next time I have an opportunity to stick a fork in Chris,
I will. Do it as we're wrapping up the show?
Yeah.
That way, at least Chris could make an appearance, a cameo.
A cameo.
He's busy. He's busy doing more important things than this.
Maybe David Tennant is available.
Ooh, I'm just glad Dr. Don is coming back. But until next time, everybody, I am Andrew Scott on behalf of Dr. Mark Peterson and Ty Robert Anthony. We are 3 hats instead of 4, and on behalf of Chris Vacano, I say, take care of each other, wear your masks, get your shots. We're not done with this dumb virus, but obviously things are getting better. But take care of everybody, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time, because we may end up miles from here.
Miles from here, yeah.
Light years from here. Light years. All right, everybody, take care. We'll talk to you later.
We're not staying here.
I can't get rid of you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Well, there's a chunk of time you can't get back. From Portland, Oregon, this has been Keep Your Hat On, a big little show about a whole lot of nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is a narrowband broadcast network production in association with PodSquadPDX.com. Andrew Scott, executive producer. Robert Anthony and Chris Vacano, associate producers. Our theme music was written and produced by Andrew Scott, along with help from Ron Kajawa. Website design and maintenance by Vacano Creative, Chris Vacano Webmaster. Available at VacanoCreative.com. Audio and video production by Andrew Scott, available at AndrewScottMedia.com. Got ideas or comments for the show? Email us at talkback@kyhopodcast.com, and don't forget to like, click, and subscribe. On behalf of the boys, I'm your announcer, Michael Brumage. Thanks for listening. I guess.
Once again, I have 1 hour and 43 minutes of shit to edit.
Where's Chris? Is Chris lost in the never-ending emptiness? Or the infinite void? Maybe he's terribly depressed and smiling makes his face ache. And maybe somewhere Chris. I'm just so used to saying it.
NBBN.
The Narrowband Broadcast Network.
The focus is on you.